So what happens when we die, and what is the nature of incarnation? I think when we die, the inner conscious space that is our own inner being simply reemerges with the outer space. It's like when a sealed pot breaks open, there is no differentiation any longer between the space outside of the pot and the space inside of the pot. So when we die, we break away from the self-imposed conscious limitations of this incarnation, and our consciousness becomes free to explore conscious reality as it is. Essentially, we become like God. We're free from the limitations of the incarnation. And this is exactly what happens when we dream. I think it was Yogananda that said that when we dream and we sleep, we become like gods. And I think that's really true, because when we dream, our consciousness is somewhat set free of this body, and it is able to explore other faculties of this seemingly conscious reality. And the same thing happens when we use our imagination, when we daydream. Um, our consciousness has this incredible ability to create worlds and to create situations and stories within those worlds. And I think that's what the nature of consciousness is it's this world builder, it's this world maker. And that's also what the hallmark quality of God is, right? God's the creator. God's this perfect conscious force that has an ability to effortlessly and perfectly manifest infinite worlds and infinite creations. And that is exactly what consciousness does. I think that is what the more natural and obvious quality of consciousness is. And obviously, you know, I suppose like as an avaduta, somebody who's walking the path of the avaduta, one of the instructions is to see nature as your guru, is to see nature as your teacher. If you really want to gain insights into what reality is really like, then have a look at the nature of reality itself. So when we have a look at our dreams, what we're seeing is infinite conscious manifestations being made effortlessly. When we have a look at our imagination, okay, it is conscious manifestations creating themselves effortlessly. So it makes sense that that is most probably the nature of consciousness. And the nature of reality is the space in which infinite creation has an ability to manifest, and consciousness has an ability to implement itself into that manifestation through an incarnation. Okay, and that's exactly what consciousness is doing. It is manifesting these stories, it's manifesting these worlds, it's manifesting these incarnations in order to immerse itself with these incarnations. Okay? And the question is, why is it doing this? Why is consciousness putting itself into form? Why is it manifesting itself into form? And I think the reason it's doing this is because it's bored. I think it's just fucking bored out of its mind, and it's trying to find something that can keep it perpetually entertained and busy while it spends its time in eternity, right? Because soul, consciousness, spirit is supposed to be eternal. It's supposed to be undying and unborn. It always has been. So if you really are this infinite being, a God, and you can do anything at any time and you have eternity to do it, what's going to happen? Okay, you're going to get bored. You're going to be like, okay, what's the next form of entertainment? What am I going to do now to keep myself busy? So consciousness effortlessly creates this samsara to keep itself entertained to a degree. Okay, it's playing a game. It is a leela. It is a leela. And just like somebody will buy a video game in order to keep themselves entertained, that's exactly what consciousness is doing with form. So what an incarnation actually is a self-imposed set of limitations that is reinforced by natural law, which is law of consciousness, natural law, in order to have some kind of an experience. The limitations of the incarnation are limited by the senses, the five senses, the sense's ability to process conscious information, and the brain's ability to interpret conscious information. So we have limitations on our senses, and we have also neurological limitations to the degree to which we can process immediate reality. And these limitations only exist within the self-imposed incarnation. As soon as the incarnation breaks away, as soon as we die, those limitations go away, and our consciousness becomes free to do whatever it wants. It can explore any world it wants. It can explore any moment that it has an ability to remember. It can do anything. It becomes like a god. So I think that's what happens when we die. And I really do believe that incarnations simply exist to keep the eternal consciousness entertained. I mean, like, what else are you going to do for eternity but find ways to spend it in an entertained way? Okay? And that's why reality is not always sunshine and rainbows. That's why there is this duality of, suffering and feelings of freedom and joy, is because it is that dualistic dynamic that makes the most interesting story. It's the hero rising up from the ashes. It's, going from one extreme to the next. That is what seems to really tantalize consciousness. That's what seems to entertain consciousness. And it is true, you are an immortal being. Consciousness is an eternal being. And when you do go into that God state, the Zen Buddhist Bodhidharma was right. When the emperor asked him, what is the Pure Land like? What is nirvana like? What is the highest state? Bodhidharma said, vast emptiness and nothing holy. And in my personal experience with psychedelic trips and deep meditations and going into that state of void sunyata, unified non-dual consciousness, that is exactly what it feels like. It's not these grand halls and these grand heavenly realms. It's just vast emptiness and vast freedom, and just this blank canvas on which creation has ability to manifest. And, some people get different kinds of video games, right? Some people like to play first-person shooters. Other people like to play like strategy games. Some people like to play FIFA and soccer and racing games. And that's exactly what consciousness is doing with incarnation. It is manifesting these infinite worlds. It's manifesting infinite worlds in order to keep itself infinitely entertained. So when you have an ability to see consciousness and see reality from that perspective, life does lose this element of seriousness, and there is this element of a divine comedy that comes to creep in. Not a divine comedy in the sense that it's all a joke, but a divine comedy in the sense that it's actually not that serious. Reality isn't that serious. Life is not that serious. You've been doing this forever, and you're going to carry on doing this forever. And I know it feels like this is the only life, but it's designed that way in order to keep you excited, in order to keep you entertained, in order to enable you to gain wisdom and gain experience and go through this whole soul journey that takes eons and eons and eons. But in the face of eternity, eons is like one little story, just one life. So consciousness, the eternal consciousness, has created a plethora of stories in which it can engage itself fully in order to keep itself busy for eternity. And that's, I think, is what's happening. I think that's what's happening. Nature is our greatest teacher, and we have to look to the nature of consciousness and reality as it is and see what it's doing. Modern psychology denounces dreams and the imagination to simply be mental bullshit of the subconscious mind. But it's not. It is the nature of imagination and the nature of dreams and the nature of psychedelic experiences, the nature of outer-body experiences and altered states of consciousness through meditative practices. We are starting to see a general theme. And the general theme is that reality is made out of stories that are manifested by consciousness. And that's exactly that's the nature of God, man. It's the infinite creator of the infinite worlds. And when we just have a look at our own basic consciousness, the quality of dream, the quality of sleep, and the quality of imagination, and the quality of the psychedelic experience, we see that pattern come through very clearly. We see that pattern come through. The truth of consciousness and reality is no mystery. It's not hidden. Okay, all we have to do is look at the nature of our own dreams and our own consciousness and our own imagination to understand what the qualities of these things are really like. You know, we have all these theories about it, but when you actually look at it for what it is, you really gain that insight. So what happens when we die? Just the inner space merges with the outer space, and it's not going to feel overwhelming. It's not going to feel, you know, crazy or hectic or tumultuous, or you getting swooped up in the storm of consciousness. It's going to feel very natural. It's going to feel very underwhelming, probably even, and it's going to be like waking up from a dream. It's going to be like, yo, whew, that was, hectic, like, whoa, that was a crazy one. Or it's going to feel like coming down from some heavy psychedelic trip, where you think in the psychedelic trip, reality is real. In the dream, you think reality is real and you're living that life and you're having that dream experience. And then you wake up and you're like, oh, it was just a dream. There's no reason to not believe that that is exactly how life is going to end. Okay, in fact, that is most likely how it's going to feel. Because that is how it already feels when we come out of altered states of consciousness. That is how it feels when we come out of other realms of being, in the dream space and in the psychedelic space and in the imaginative space. And if reality really is consciousness, then I have no doubt that that's what it's going to feel like. And it's going to feel fun, and it's going to feel natural, and it's going to be obvious. It's not going to be anything new. It's just going to be obvious and natural. And to conclude on incarnation, this is just a self-imposed manifestation of limitations in order to have a particular experience of reality. Consciousness is already godlike. It is already infinite and limitless. But what it's done is it's imposed certain limitations on itself in order to have a particular experience, and that is what they call Maya. Okay, it's these conscious limitations that consciousness puts on itself in order to have a particular experience of reality. That is all incarnation is. And consciousness is so perfect and intelligent, universal consciousness is perfectly intelligent. So it has naturally developed a organic, natural conscious system that can keep itself entertained and busy and fulfilled and on a path of entertained discovery and adventure for all eternity. And that's what's happening, folks. That's what's happening. That's at least what I think is happening. And it's nothing grand and spiritual. It's nothing holy. It's nothing, oh, you're going to ascend to the level of the gods and, you're going to be judged by the great gods. And like, no, dude, no. All a god is a consciousness that is not limited to an incarnation. That's all a god is. Okay, gods are supposed to be these infinitely powerful dudes that can do fucking anything. And that's true. That's exactly what happens when your consciousness becomes free from the self-imposed limitations of the incarnation. It does become like God. It is free to explore and do and immerse itself in whatever it so pleases. I think that's all I have to say on the topic of consciousness and incarnation and the nature of these different conscious states. Let me know if there's anything to add. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. But yeah, that's my take on the whole situation.